Welcome back to Sports Talk is McKimmy. This is the one and only Loose Cannon David McBee along with the Zen Master Mike Hemme. And we don't have Joey Football this week, but we're still having another record-breaking edition. But this is the portion of the show where we're going to let it all loose. We're going to talk about whatever we want, whenever we want, however we want to talk about it. And Mike's going to start us off, and you know, Mike, we have been talking about this for a few days now. I ran into an article online that about made me want to puke when I saw that Terrell Owens might be going into the Hall of Fame. And what's even crazier is who he might be going into the Hall of Fame in front of. I'm going to let you share it. Just a complete disgrace, Mike.
Well, Dave, I didn't know the information when you sent it to me. And then I read it, and I was immediately, at first, I had moved through the 5 stages of grief. I was upset. First, I was like, what? Then I was sort of sad for him, and I was kind of angry. I'm stuck in that angry mood. Because what Dave's referring to is, Marvin Harrison, good guy on the other end of so many of the passes thrown by Peyton Manning in Indianapolis. T.O. A lot of production, a lot of show, a lot of problems, no Super Bowls. Those guys, both of them, and I'm not saying that they don't belong in the Hall of Fame, but they're Hall of Fame finalists this year, and fine for them. But the problem that I have are the 2 wide receivers that didn't make it. And it's not surprising that it would be, in my case, 2 St. Louis Rams, now Los Angeles Rams. That's another deal altogether. But Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt being passed up is a travesty. It is a travesty. Torrey Holt had 6 seasons of 90 catches and 1,300 yards passing. The most in NFL history. It's still a record. That's got to get you to the finals. Isaac Bruce, 4th in touchdowns. 8th in receptions. I mean, come on. Step it up. These guys should be in there. They have Super Bowl rings. Isaac Bruce is a minister. Terrell Owens is a reality TV failure with no Super Bowls. I just think that it's part of the society when, we sometimes give too much attention to the loudest rather than the best. I don't know what the effect of, reality shows or whatever is it, Donald Trump, for example, this year, the loudest, the most outrageous gets the attention, while many other candidates in politics or players, in this case, get passed by. And so it irritates me. I know Holt and Bruce will get into the Hall of Fame, and they will deserve it when they get there. And that the man who threw them so many passes, including the game-winning pass and their only Super Bowl victory, Kurt Warner, will join them one day, and I'll be happy then. To you, Dave.
Well, Mike, and I'll tell you, going back to this topic real quick, when I think of Torrey Holt, I think of Isaac Bruce, I think of team players. And football is all about being a team player and a teammate. Terrell Owens was all about himself. It was all about him. He was not a team player. To me, you have to be a team player to go into the National Football League Hall of Fame. and to put someone as selfish and arrogant as him, who destroyed teams in the Hall, possibly putting him in the Hall of Fame and keeping out two players who built such a great team when it was the greatest show on turf. An absolute ridiculous joke that the NFL were considering putting T.O. into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you. I mean, obviously, Dave, it's a joke.
Well, since we've kind of had our vent session on T.O., and man, I mean, we have some other things we could vent about. You know, there was an incident at the Cotter Warrior basketball game that last night with our Melbourne fans that I thought about making that event of the week, and you know, it's trying to work on what to say tonight. And honestly, I actually find myself going to talk about something completely different. And I'm going to talk about the excellence of execution. The best there is, the best there was, and the best there will ever be. And I'm talking about Bret the Hitman Hart. Had some big news. He's a pro wrestler, and occasionally I like to talk about the world of sports entertainment. Bret the Hitman Hart, former 5-time WWF Heavyweight Champion this week, announced that he has prostate cancer. Bret the Hitman Hart is a legend in the world of professional wrestling, and we're talking about someone who wrestled from 1978 to 2000. He was one of the greatest tag team champions of all time with Jim the Anvil Neidhart in their Hart Foundation. Then he later became a famous singles wrestler where he won 5 heavyweight championships and was involved in some of the most epic matches of all time. And I'm talking about WrestleMania 12 with him and the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels going for 1 hour and going over the time limit, one of the greatest matches of all time. And then we're talking about his WrestleMania 13 match with the one and only Stone Cold Steve Austin that had one of the greatest swerve endings at the end of the match, where going into the match, Bret was initially a babyface. And when I say babyface, that means good guy. Stone Cold Steve Austin was going in as the bad guy in that one, as the heel is what they call him. Well, in the middle of that match, you know, Bret the Hitman Hart got Stone Cold Steve Austin in the sharpshooter. He kept it in it even after the bell rang. Stone Cold would not tap out. He ended up passing out, you know, from the hold. And by the end of that match, the ultimate babyface, Bret Hart, had become a heel because he would not let go of the hold. And the one and only Stone Cold Steve Austin became one of the greatest babyfaces in professional wrestling and went on to change the landscape of the WWF over the next 5 years. But, you know, after that epic match, of course, the summer of 97, Bret the Hitman Hart was the anti-American. He was, you know, forming a team with the Loose Cannon, Brian Pillman, also forming it with Owen Hart, the British Bulldog, and Jim the Anvil Hart, formed one of the greatest factions of all time, the anti-American Hart Foundation, and helped, you know, really push Steve Austin to become the superstar that he became. Well, of course, late 97, Bret the Hitman Hart's contract came up, and then we had the notorious Montreal Screwjob where Vince McMahon and Shawn Michaels both were involved in basically what was supposed to be a planned match, changing the outcome without letting the champion know so they could get the belt off of him. Well, Bret, of course, became very bitter, moved on to WCW, which never used him, didn't know how to use the excellence of execution, and he ended up having a career that floundered, and, of course, WCW went out of business. Well, a few years after that, he's had a stroke. He had a very, bad accident. For a while, he was dealing with paralysis. He has fought for the last 20 years through so many things, from having to deal with such idiots as Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff in WCW, to dealing with the physical issues, the kick to the face of Bill Goldberg that ended his career. But Bret the Hitman Hart continued to battle through it. Bret the Hitman Hart, I'd just like to say, I hope everyone thinks about him. I wish him nothing but a quick recovery of this prostate cancer, because without Bret the Hitman Hart, you don't have Stone Cold Steve Austin and the Attitude Era. Without Bret the Hitman Hart, you don't have the evil Mr. McMahon character that ended up pushing pro wrestling to heights that had never been before. He's such a pivotal character in the world of professional wrestling. wish him nothing but a quick and speedy recovery. And, maybe one day, who knows, we can get him on the show here on Sports Talk is McKimmey. I'd love to interview the excellence of execution. But in finishing up, that's another episode here of Sports Talk is McKimmey. We could go on and on. We could have segment after segment, but we got to go home sometime. So we're going to catch you next week. So this week, go out and do something nice for someone. Do something for someone that might not be expecting it. Surprise them, because you never know what might happen, and your tomorrows are never guaranteed. Have a great week, Sports Talk is McKimmey fan, and we will be back next week.